Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. And so, today's video, we're going to talk about some major issues, I think at least, that Age of Sigmar has, and we're going to put a positive spin on it because we're going to look at how these issues can be resolved in the game. Now, these issues might not be something that everyone experiences, but in the, I guess, almost 100 games of Age of Sigmar 3.0 I've played in person now with a variety of different armies against a variety of different armies. These are issues I'm finding throughout the game, also from watching tournaments that I both ran, competed in, and all of that. These are issues that I've seen in the game that I think need to be addressed so the game can be better. Now, it should be said that I love Age of Sigmar. Anyone who watches the channel knows that I love the game, and that love wants to see the game be the best thing it can be. And so, by that, I want these problems to get fixed and be better. Games Workshop have certainly made attempts at fixing various things in the game, and I do believe one of the best fixes they did in the latest FAQ has nulled one of my issues with one of them that we're going to talk about, that being the change to Unleash Hell. And we've also seen a change on the Amulet of Destiny, two things that people weren't really concerned about, and so they should be commended for that. However, there are still prone nails sticking out like a sore thumb that definitely need addressing in Age of Sigmar. Now, not all of these points that I'm going to talk about today are going to be game mechanic wise. They're going to be, I guess, cosmetic as well, so how the game looks on the table and looks to a new player. With that said, let's get cracking on, and these are going to be 5 major issues with Warhammer Age of Sigmar and how can we fix them. And so, number 1 is shooting. We've talked about this on the channel, in particular mortal wound shooting before. And so, first of all, let's go over what the issue is with shooting. First of all, mortal wounds at range. These can provide a serious issue in the game, in how people view it, and also they can just be not fun to play with. Mortal wounds at range, especially on the hit roll, can be really devastating when taken en masse, and there are ways to do it en masse with certain units in the game, getting access to it that are also battle line units, and also we have out of sequence shooting with units that have mortal wound shooting. Out of sequence shooting, regardless of its source, I really don't like. I don't think it should be a part of the game, and mortal wound shooting shouldn't be either, or at least not in the current form that it is. A big thing with shooting, and a lot of people's dislike for it, and which sees it sort of likened as one of the major NPEs or negative play experiences in the game, is it's uninteractive. There's not a lot you can do. You stand there and you get shot at. So I think we need to look at how can we fix this issue. How can we fix shooting? And so we've talked about it on the channel before of how to change how mortal wounds work. I think all mortal wounds, and this doesn't just go for shooting, I think all mortal wounds should go to the wound roll and you should never see them on a hit roll. This removes the ability to load the dice pool full of dice and get mortal wounds that way, and it stops that. And also, you know, makes it harder. There are less buffs to wound and stuff like that, so I like that a lot better. Now, obviously, we should not allow out-of-phase shooting. I think things like Marathi and the Bow Snake, she should only allow them to fight in combat with her double activation. There should be no shooting from anything in the hero phase or anything like that. It can be a really sort of unfun mechanic to get shot twice in a turn, and just makes it uninteractive. Now, out-of-sequence shooting, we of course don't want to disregard Unleash Hell, and I actually think, like I mentioned at the start of the video, that Games Workshop did a really good job at dealing with Unleash Hell. I like the change to Unleash Hell. I think it was a really good change. Now, another one that I think is going to sort of change how we can make it more interactive is give reactions to shooting. Now, a lot of people will throw the idea around of, oh, well, maybe the shooting should work like combat, so you shoot, I shoot. That's all well and good when you first think about it, when you're thinking, oh, I'm playing Caradron versus Lumineth, they're going to shoot and I'm going to shoot back and it's going to be fine. However, not every army has shooting in the same capacity. You'll have armies like Caradron, like Lumineth, who can do really good shooting, and like Stormcast as well. Then you have armies like Ogres and like Khorne, which have shooting units available, but they are far inferior in comparison. So that doesn't make the game any fairer. And why you can say, you know, well, combat units are different like that, I'll get onto that in a second, but combat is, you know, you get to roll dice against rolling dice. And I think there's changes going to be made to that as well. But I thought, what if we gave reactions? So what if, when you get shot by something, you can either shoot back if they're in range, or you can choose to retreat or move or something. Give an action to the shooting, so you can make a pile in with your shooting, which could be a 3-inch move backwards to take yourself out of range of the second unit, or bring yourself in range. So if you're shot twice, you get to shoot at something in return. Reactions and that ability of like piling in when you're shooting or something like that could really make for a more interactive shooting phase. I know that would make the game more complicated, but I think it would make shooting more fun, more interactive, and less of a negative play experience in the game. Number 2, deleting units back and forth. Now, I'll try and explain the issue I have with this, in that a lot of games you see units just, my unit comes in, wipes out your unit comes in, wipes out my unit, and this is sort of how we play the game at the moment. For me, this doesn't sort of give me a game. This is just, I throw, roll dice, kill you, you throw dice, roll, kill me. It's not that fun. It is not why I play Age of Sigmar combats. It's not why I like the combats. In games where I play with friends where we more measure what we're doing in, say, a less competitive environment, this isn't the case. And I understand competitive is all about taking the best and stuff like that, but I think the ability of just destroying entire units with one model, albeit a monster, is, a little bit too much for the game. So I do think damage needs to be changed in the game in certain ways, and splash damage is a major issue. Also, while I get that this sort of delete for delete thing works to speed up the game, I think it gives less immersiveness to the game. It doesn't make the game look as cool when you've got these prolonged combats. You can see these combats happening on the table. They look far cooler, and they mean so much more when it's not just, I'm going to run through that in one turn because I can do 78 million damage. Now, how do we fix this? Damage needs to be reined in. And with this, damage doesn't need to be random, but it shouldn't be set so high. I think 40k, and I was looking at Eldar rumors the other day that were coming out, and damage was like 3 plus D3. I really like this middle ground. Rather than being, the damage D6 that it was previously in Age of Sigmar, and we started seeing now models just have set damage 3 or 4. I actually like the idea of having this ability to get, 2 to 6, where it can be, 2d3 is either 2 to 6. It's a little bit higher. It stops, 1 damage going through. I like that mechanic a lot more. Or 3 plus d3, so it's 4 to 6 damage. I think that's a much better mechanic than either of the two extremes. I think it is the middle ground where we should be heading. Now, another thing, talking on splash damage, on how we can rein that in. In 40k, playing some games of that now, not everything carries over. Now, I don't think that's perfect either. However, what I would like to see is I would like to see certain weapons not carry over. When my witch health is damage 2, for example, thanks to Mind Razor, I don't like the idea, or don't think, at least, she should be killing 2 models with that 1 stab of hers. I think what she should be doing is enabling her to kill someone who is a 2 wound model, so kill a whole Stormcast. I think this reins in a few units where you make certain attacks have this keyword, or like splash, or meteoric, or whatever you want to call it. Certain attacks have this keyword that make them spread over, and certainly there are definitely models that should do that. But I think reining this in on various models, putting it on certain things, will definitely help sort of rein in the damage count. So what you could do and take out another monster with your 14 damage, that 14 damage might be 7 attacks at damage 2, and so only actually kills 7 Free Guild Guard or something like that. Is an interesting way to look at it. Number 3, armies don't look like armies. Now, I'll get this from playing other game systems, playing other games like playing some Warhammer Fantasy the other day, or going and playing some Conquest or Lord of the Rings and other games like that. Even 40k to an extent as well, though that has its own issues with this as well. I feel armies just don't look like armies on the table as much as they do a collection of models. Now, I get this is maybe personal preference in this one, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it as well. You can definitely build armies to look like armies. There are definitely ones that do look the part in the game for sure, but there are a lot that just feel like they're a bunch of random models thrown together on the table and there's no cohesive look to them. Whether they're painted all the same or not, they just look odd. And for me, this does break immersion a little. I like to see an army that looks like it functions. I really like the idea on how Age of Sigmar put monsters and artillery as their own thing. However, I think with how we're changing and how we're allowing so much to be battleline in the game, it is changing how our armies look. And I think the change to this is force organization and how we look at making things battle line. Let's take Caradron Overlords, for example. I love the idea of an all-ship army, but the fact if it's all ships, it doesn't look like as much of an army to me. I think it should be, maybe one frigate for every unit you've got on the table can be taken as a battle line unit alongside the unit, so long as they're in it, or something like that. But also, you get these other armies where you've got like 3 or 4 monsters and minimum battle line, and it just does not look right to me on a tabletop. It doesn't look like the mass battle game I'm wanting to play. And I get that Age of Sigmar has its own thing on like trying to allow you to run so many very different lists, but I think force organization can bring the look of an army. However, there is the issue, obviously, with Force Org that you don't want it to get like Fantasy where you needed so many models to start. So you've got to have those elite options in there, but you need to have those elite options sort of backed up and creating varied armies in the list. You don't want to have all these armies containing the same blocks of troops times 3 of whatever this is, because this is the best thing, and then times 3 of the same character and like a big killy piece behind. It doesn't look right to me. Anyway, I think Force Org is a change. I do like the idea of bringing back something like either percentage-based systems that we had in Warhammer Fantasy in 8th edition. I really like that idea, limiting percent of certain of like other core and all that sort of stuff to the army. I think that could be a really interesting change to the game. Number 4, the clear army imbalance in the game. Now, I get that we have multiple top tier armies in the game. We definitely have more armies up that top tier than we ever did. However, that top tier is further away from the middle than it has ever been at the same time. I do feel that the vast majority of armies that are in that top tier will beat those things below them just for being that army. And that is an issue for the game. Now, competitive aside, we've got to think on how this affects the average wargamer as well, because that's the majority of people that play the games, and they are the people that keep the game alive. Now, if there is clear imbalance between top and middle, and it's not something that's close and a few dice rolls can win you a game or some good play for your average player, it is going to create issues on how people perceive the game. Now, and I'll even say that the middle and the bottom, there are massive gaps between that as well. The tiers of the game, those 3 sort of top, middle, and bottom, there's big gaps between all 3 tiers. Now, if there's a big gap between middle and bottom, imagine the gap between bottom and top. How do we fix this, though, in Warhammer Age of Sigmar? Well, first of all, a lot of people have said, like, War Scroll changes is the way to fix this. It is updating War Scrolls rather than changing points. There are some units that, unless you make them some obscene point, in which case they become broken because they become too cheap and spammable, you need to change the War Scrolls to give them a use within the Force. Now, and so you need to make these proper War Scroll changes. Now, this on top, we need to make these White Dwarf patches, the ones that are getting on armies that haven't received proper updates, to actually target needed issues. So this goes along with the FAQ. There was not a lot of targeted issues in the FAQ. We didn't see like maybe a change for Glimpse Buckets of giving them access to more buffs across their units. Simple War Scroll changes that would really help that army. And some other issues as well, very similar to that. This all ties into, I think, the FAQ. When I was reading it, those first 2 changes I saw, the Amulet of Destiny changed and Unleash Hell changed, really positive, but the second points adjustment and balance from that to actual armies was very, very lacking. The points just seemed random and didn't hit a mark at all on most things. They did get some things right. Sentinels going up, Bowsnake going up, correct. But I feel like when I saw things like in the 40k update, like Necron got core on a bunch of units. The Imperial Guard got 2+ save tanks. There were some good targeted additions to those armies. Did they change those armies? No. But they gave those armies something better to latch onto, which is a massive positive. And so I think when we see these changes, I'd really like to see more care taken to them and proper balances given to those factions that desperately need it. And number 5, terrain. Now, this is probably, I think, the issue furthest from seeing a fix to it. And well, the issue is, it might as well not exist in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. There is so little effective terrain in the game. Pretty much when you roll up terrain, you see if there's mystical, arcane, and you go on the side that's on it, or the side where you can get to that the easiest. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. And so the fix to this needs to be actually installing terrain rules. And I think terrain typing is where we begin with this. We've seen where typing is given to impassable or line of sight blocking or obscuring and hard cover and light cover and all that. These are rules that should be on terrain that give us meaning to the terrain on the table. Now, there are some things that don't get fixed with terrain. Things like shooting that doesn't need line of sight, which should not happen. Lumineth Sentinels should not have mortal wounds on line of sight, ignoring terrain. That should not happen. But that's a whole separate issue. And we've talked about that already. But I don't think we need to change the amount of terrain on the board itself. We need to change how that terrain works. So all of a sudden, if your trees, negative movements, as well as block line of sight, and then so you can actually have things like overgrown terrain. I will say, I thought that things like overgrown and the line of sight blocking terrain that we got from the other terrain rules we got last season would actually be useful to have as permanent terrain things, where you're half movement moving through terrain, where you're line of sight blocking through terrain, you can't draw line of sight through terrain. Terrain gives you cover if you're behind it, and provides negatives to hit if you're behind hard cover as well. Actually putting some proper rules on terrain will definitely increase the game in general. And so I'm not sure what exactly we do, but it definitely needs more than what we have. At the moment, the terrain is almost non-existent. Provides some buffs around the table, but 9 times out of 10, I don't notice what terrain is. Just move my models over and don't care, really, for the most part. So it would be interesting to have, some negative movements, some line of sight blocking properly, some hard cover and light cover differentials, giving light both -1 to hit and +1 to save and stuff like that in the game. But that is my 5 points that I think need fixing in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I'd love to hear your thoughts on them and your ideas of things you would like to see fixing in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Make no mistake, I love this game and I want this game to be the best thing it can be, and this video is more putting out issues so people can talk about them and so we can hopefully see a fix made to these issues. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you have not already. And also, why not drop us a comment below and let us know what you enjoyed about the video. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Cinderful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the video's description to our Discord server. Also, if you'd like to help support the channel more and in another way, you can do so either by supporting on Patreon or YouTube members. You can do either of these by following the links in the video's description, and as a special thing for everyone who does, would like to give a shout out first of all to our Patreons: Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domer, Mark Harvey, James Cater, and Samuel. And a special shout out as well to our YouTube members: Greenrich Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Vinny, Lockloric, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, and Sean Scott. Lastly, a special thank you to, first of all, Lady Watchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel you can see here, and to Xmorphic, who does all the amazing background work for our Discord server, making sure it all works nice and properly over there. Thank you all for watching once again, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.